we'll go ahead and get running. We got a bunch of folks still popping in, but I want to make sure that we stay on track. So welcome to everybody that's here. I really appreciate you guys joining us. We'll get into it right away because it is time to roll. Real quick, I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the Director of Government Solutions with 3QC, and with us we have James Becker out in our headquarters in Folsom, California. Say hey, James.
Good morning, everybody. I'm James Becker, and my background is mechanical engineering and making buildings work, energy efficiency solutions, and my passion really is working with construction teams and building owners to make people comfortable in buildings and to make buildings energy efficient.
Super. And we'll be talking a lot about that and how we get there for sure. Real quick, good shout out to everybody that's posting here. We have folks coming in, especially from the VA and GSA with Public Building Service. So we appreciate you guys coming. And the other folks, I'm really glad that you guys are here as well, because you are the ones that are going to be using the buildings a lot of the times that are being constructed. And that's it's great to have you guys here. So we'll make sure we keep everything on track as much as we can. Real quick with the housekeeping, the first thing is disclaimer. This is not affiliated or endorsed by any agency, whoever we wind up talking about, and it's for your information purposes only. And all the participation in this briefing is voluntary, and any engagement by government personnel, a lot of folks out there, is not an indication of endorsement or commitment to purchase from any vendor. As long as we get that out of the way, everybody can talk as they want to, because this is going to be a nice free flow of information, we hope. Real quick, there's a notes version that was not sent to your email, actually, but so you can download this. I meant to make sure that we did that, as a matter of fact. You can get it. Where is the location of that, Tammy, so that they can go download this if they want to print it?
It's at 3qcinc.com.
3qcinc.com. Is there a particular folder?
Under the resources tab, yes.
Under the resources tab. So you can go do that. So don't check your email because it never went there. So real quick, as far as questions go, please enter your audio pin if you dialed in on the phone. And if you don't have any speakers, we can always text things back and forth. You can enter a question for anybody that's on here. And real quick, to test this, open that panel on the right-hand side and fill out why you are here, so that we can know what that is. And while you're doing that and testing this whole entire process of why you are here, we'll tell you a little bit about 3QC. We are experts in the field of commissioning. We're commissioning agents. We have some of the highest level experts, as a matter of fact, including a lead fellow on staff. And we specialize in any type of vertical construction with a significant experience in the healthcare world. And one of the things I want to point out is some of these things you can't put in an RFP. It's the collaborative process of communication and building a team so that you actually get a building that works. And James talked about that a little bit earlier, about his passion being getting the building to do exactly what it's supposed to do, from design all the way through. And more importantly, whatever the owner of that building and the occupants of that building are responsible for doing. So we want to make sure that that happens as well. So why are you here? A lot of folks are here to say, what in the world is all this whole building commissioning, and what is the meaning of it and all that? So we're going to get into that, and how third-party commissioning affects the construction schedule positively or negatively, and why some of these contracts are being expected to be separated as opposed to be included under the AE contract or the general contract. And so also verifying how can you determine who is a really good commissioning agent? So we're going to be talking about some of those things as well. And to get into some of the specifics, Dale says, if we had a primer overview read to keep, yep, we're going to have that for you. Hopefully this will suffice, as well as some of the notes and Q&A as far as when we're done with this. Susan, if I'm able to learn how the commissioning is important to a design build project. Absolutely, Susan. We'll talk about design builds as part of this process. And Brian, a way to estimate approximate cost of third-party commissioning over a range of complexities. Well, we're going to talk about the high level stuff, Brian, and we'll get into some of the complexities. We could probably take some of those offline because we'll put people in a coma if we talk about too much of the complexities. But we will do a high level, and whatever you need, we'll do outside of this. Rex, this will be the first experience. Congratulations, Rex, as you have a need to understand the requirements. Bill, if there's a discussion on prefabricated ancillary buildings only costing about $150K, probably not in this session. So if you have something in particular with that, we can take that offline as well. Roy says, won't know until I hear the briefing. That's great, Roy. I appreciate that. Andrew, if I obtain a better knowledge of building commissioning process, hopefully we do our job there. Ashley, information is presented in clear and concise manner. We'll hold you responsible for keeping us on task with that. And Deborah, sample documents used in contracting production setting are supplied. Okay, technical evaluations. We'll probably not go into all the technical eval parts, but we can take those offline as well. And Dalia, and an elevator version can be a key takeaway. Hopefully, well, there you go. Dalia and Ashley are the ones that are going to keep us on purpose, and hopefully we do give you an elevator speech or at least a high-level overview of what it is there. And a couple of other folks that are popping in. Stephen Bishop, I have a lead project in design now. Okay, certainly. Reginald, I'm involved in major medical construction for the VA. Super. I'm glad that you're here. If there's anything in particular, cannot find slides on the website, Julie says. Let's repeat that real quick, and I'll go to 3QC. Hold on a sec. I'll bring this over. We'll go to 3QC Inc. And we'll see where those puppies are. Drive me over here real quick. The resources tab and federal commissioning resources. Briefing, here it is, the briefing notes and the PowerPoint. So if you launch these briefing notes, they're right here, and that'll pull up that for you guys, okay? So does that brings that back. And then let's see, I'm here regarding the VA construction to understand what this is about. Whole building commissioning. Awesome, Bonnie. Glad you're here. And okay, Clayton will have to deal with that. Yours is completely off topic, so we'll deal with yours in another time. So if you have any other things, great job opening that panel over there and letting us know why you're here. And as far as why, some of the things we're going to review, some of the initiatives that are coming down on your head, talking about, hey, what is this all about? And learning how the whole building commissioning process works, why a separate contract is important. We'll be dealing with that a little bit. Some of the challenges, we had one, actually, Carol said, provide negative issues other COs are having. Love it. We'll talk about some of those challenges specifically, some of the costs associated, as well as commissioning benefits and keeping you out of hot water. I know a lot of folks out there know about the Denver VA situation, which has caused a lot of grief and anxiety in the construction process, and hopefully will keep you away from those types of problems as well. So real quick, jumping right into it. The federal initiatives, this has been developing over the years as far as commissioning and what these things are. In April of 2005, GSA put out a building commissioning guide, which we're also going to supply all the links to this. So you don't have to worry about Googling any of this stuff. We'll give you links to that as well, and you'll be able to grab those. In 2006, there was a government-wide memorandum that was signed by many of the agency heads, which kind of started to drive the green initiatives, which are also supported by the executive orders 13.423 and 13.514, to really start to drive some of those initiatives for green and LEED certification for buildings. And last year, the VA put out two process manuals. One was whole building, and the other one is the retro process manual for commissioning. And in October 2014, the VA construction facilities management side started to require separate contracts, and it depends on the size of what the project is determining whether or not that applies for the separate contract at this point. But that we're seeing this shift of thinking that we want to make sure everybody understands. And I'm going to turn this over to James for a little bit to talk about the common definitions of commissioning and what we can expect and what these kind of look like. So take us through this, James, and what these things are.
All right, so we like to use a lot of acronyms because it makes us sound smart. And actually, some of the words that we're using are long. We get tired of saying commissioning, so we use CX, and then we attach another letter to it. For example, an A to mean the certified commissioning agent or the authority. So this is the person with the qualifications that understands the commissioning process. Third-party commissioning, 3PCX. This is a commissioning agent that's under a separate contract. He's not working for the design team. He's not working, or she is not working for the contractor, but they're independent, and they're working for the owner on the owner's behalf. Owner's project requirements is the OPR, and this is the reason why we're building the building. What are the key requirements of the project? The basis of design, or the BOD, is a document that the architect and engineers draft that tells you how they're going to meet the requirements in the OPR. An FTP is a functional test plan. This is a plan that the commissioning agent drafts to make the contractor test each of the building systems. And then moving on to different types of commissioning. Primarily the last 10 or 15 years, we've been talking about lead and lead commissioning. Lead commissioning is focused primarily on new buildings and new building energy systems. So mechanical systems, electrical systems, plumbing systems, solar energy, and their control systems. But then the next step in the process is the whole building commissioning. And the whole building commissioning includes additional building systems, the enclosure, which are the doors and the windows and the roof, the network. We're running all of our computer systems, phone security over the network. It needs to work correctly as well. And then we're going to also reference on existing buildings. If we go back into an existing building and we try to fix or update existing buildings, we're calling that retro commissioning. That's looking backwards to an existing building and our existing systems.
And sometimes, piggybacking on that, James, sometimes we find that if you're just using the shell of the building, it really reverts to the whole building commissioning process opposed to retro, although depending on the budgeting and how it happens, that sometimes you fall, even if you're doing a large retro, it could fall under the whole building, right?
That's correct. And it's not important to remember all these terms. The whole building commissioning process, or the commissioning process, is a systematic quality process that we are applying to buildings. And we're looking at a process across the design and construction and through the occupancy of a building. So we're starting that process in pre-design, and we have some tasks that we'll go through in pre-design and design, and then we have tasks that go into construction, and then we move through acceptance and occupancy. And so this is a design, bid, build process. However, we could break this out into a design build process as well. We just have to recognize that we have to do the pre-design tasks before we hire the design builder. And that's really the only difference. The process is the same. So whole building commissioning is a process of tasks, of quality tasks, that we're going to do throughout the life of this design and construction phase. And during the pre-design phase, really we want to establish the goals of the project and the owner's project requirements. So this is before the architect starts putting his pen to paper. Why are we building the building? What are the energy requirements of the building? What are the operational and maintenance constraints? We need to have those down on a piece of paper, because at the end, when we measure and verify, that's what we're going to measure against to determine the quality and to ensure the quality. We've got a basis of design which the architect or engineer draft up to tell us how they're going to design to meet our requirements. We're creating a commissioning plan as we move into the design phase. The commissioning plan outlines all of the steps that we're talking about right now. It tells the different team members what their role is, what their responsibilities, what their tasks are. It describes the role of the commissioning agent, the commissioning authority, and what the commissioning authority can do or can't do. It describes the communication process. Part of commissioning is communicating these owner's project requirements through the design team to the contractor, so that the contractor is actually trying to build what you bought in the first place. We're doing design review. We're making sure that the design documents adequately address the owner's project requirements. We're creating commissioning specifications that tell the contractor the testing that he's going to have to do. We're reviewing the construction documents to make sure that all of the operational sequences, how things work, are clearly communicated. As we move into construction, we're reviewing submittals to make sure that the submittals and any changes to equipment actually meet the requirements of the design. We're visiting the site to do site inspections. We're using quality checklists to check the quality in the design documents throughout the installation process and help the contractor get the work done right. Then as we're completing construction, we're getting into equipment testing, where first we're testing each piece of equipment, an air handler maybe, or a lighting system. And then we're testing all of the equipment together as systems. And how do things work together? How do our control systems operate so that we make sure that we get our energy efficiency? Just like tuning a car, we need to tune the system to how it operates with people in it. And we're moving into the acceptance phase. This is this functional testing of all the equipment and systems together. We're training the owner and the operators of these systems, the maintenance guys, so that they know why the set points are set the way they are, so they know how to correct changes in environment, or how to make changes without going against why the system was designed in the first place. We're documenting all of these issues in a commissioning report. We're also putting together a specific systems manual. So I'm sure many of you are aware of the gobs and gobs of binders that an owner gets at the end of construction phase, the operation and maintenance manuals, and we're paring those down into an executive summary, why things work, what the set points are, and how to fix it if it goes out of kilter or out of tune. We're coming back in the winter season or the summer season, and we're testing those systems under their full loads to make sure that people are comfortable all year round. And then we're reviewing any warranty issues at about a 10-month period to make sure that the contractor corrects any outstanding issues before the warranty is up. So this is the quality process that makes sure that the building operates and that people are comfortable. So we get into why commissioning.
Yeah, just one
Go
second.
ahead.
I want to point out something real quick. These bars down the bottom that you see are where you see the involvement of your commissioning agent. It's a level of involvement, so that throughout the process, if you take a look, certainly when you get towards the end of construction, where we would have normally seen a commissioning agent come in, usually it would be right when they're ready to hand over the keys to say, okay, this is how you set the thermostats, this is how you do this, that, and the other thing, and they make sure that your HVAC systems work and your plumbing and the associated systems of a much less complex building would be. And what we found is that the earlier we are on design and pre-design, the better off we are for being able to facilitate a smooth changeover, right? So that was one thing I wanted to point out as we looked at the best practices across the board before we dove into the commissioning pieces there. But that's kind of what you can expect as involvement as far as the commissioning agents are concerned. Just want to pull that out.
So why are we doing commissioning? Well, there's many reasons why we're doing it. Capital projects require it. Codes and policies are now requiring it. LEED requires it. Our buildings today are very technical and being designed for energy savings. You wouldn't buy a new car, a Tesla for sure, if somebody didn't tune it to run right. We're reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. People need to be comfortable. We discussed how complicated and the amount of new technology in buildings. And as a contracting officer, it also reduces your risk. If done correctly, it's going to reduce the change orders and schedule impacts that your contractor typically suffers, or you suffer as a consequence of your contractor. The satisfaction of the owners and the occupants, and the reduced downtime of facilities, which is huge when we're talking VA facilities. Why separate contract? Well, agencies are recognizing that you need an independent advocate. If the commissioning agent works for somebody else, there's a loss in communication through the chain of command. And then there's also potentially a conflict of interest trying to protect somebody. The commissioning agent is looking out for the best interests of the owner, and it doesn't matter whose fault it is, why it doesn't work. The commissioning agent needs to identify it and provide a solution. We're empowering the owner. We're also helping to minimize delays through timely communication, and which also minimizes your change orders.
And I can't stress this enough, that in most instances, there isn't anybody on this call that would prefer to execute change orders as opposed to making sure that it was caught early in the cycle. And that's why when you look at not just a separate contract, but getting involved earlier in the process. And we're seeing that in some of the states, California being one, where you can't even pull a permit without having a commissioning agent, right? That's one of the things that's happening these days.
That's correct.
And we'll see that start to bubble into our world as well in the federal space.
If we move on to a survey done by the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory on the benefits of commissioning, what we see are existing buildings in purple bars and new construction in a lighter purple. And what owners are reporting to us is, hey, there's huge benefits to using a commissioning agent. And look at that first one, change orders and warranty claims. 100% of the respondents are saying commissioning is reducing the change orders and the warranty claims on a project. Dialed down here, we've highlighted thermal comfort and life of the equipment as well. And so you can see this commissioning process, whether it's the retro commissioning, fixing old equipment on existing buildings, or new equipment. Commissioning is helping significant percentages of buildings and owners are recognizing this. Another Berkeley study showed that back in '94 there were huge amounts of problems. 40% of new buildings had HVAC problems. Our goal is to eliminate these common problems by testing. Back in 1994, we didn't test anything. We just turned the building over because we assumed it worked. The Naval Facilities Command also did a study and found that their new buildings all over the world had significant problems, roofing problems, and heating and cooling topped the list. And why is this? The buildings we're building and the systems we're building are pretty dang complicated. We're trying to balance energy efficiency with indoor air quality and comfort, and now we've got server rooms and all sorts of different uses in our buildings. We've got infection control. This stuff is complicated. So, the common project challenges that commissioning helps solve, huge in the design review process. If we as a third party can understand the design and understand how to build it, then the contractor can. So your commissioning agent is asking the question, are the construction documents ready for the contractor to build it? Can he build it? In the design build process, one of the key challenges is getting the design criteria established so it gives proper guidance to the design builder so he can't go off and build anything he wants to build. So having the commissioning agent review at that time, huge benefit. Facilitating project communication. The commissioning agent is continually focused on quality issues and communication problems on the team, often between subcontractors, often between the design team and the construction team, and always pushing for answers, looking to make everyone successful together, like a team leader. When is work complete? How do you know when work is complete out on the job? A lot of these systems are like black boxes. How do you know when the network is working correctly? How do you know when the building control system is working correctly? You probably don't. Your construction manager, on-site person, probably doesn't know. The commissioning agent does know because he or she is testing them. And then avoiding schedule delay, understanding the testing process and the quality process, and communicating this to the contractor so that the contractor can manage his own subcontractors, understanding that one of the biggest challenges contractors have, they don't know what's in that black box either. And so they can't manage that subcontractor. The commissioning agent getting in the middle, showing, hey, we tested this, it works. We tested that, it doesn't work. Moving on a little closer to the acceptance of a building, the final inspections and the punch list, and determining when a building really is substantially complete. So here's a little chart here, and it asks, when are all the systems in a new building fully functional? And it's kind of sad, but a survey of building owners said that if you look at the big blue box, the building doesn't work until 6 to 12 months after we occupy it. No. You want the building to operate prior to occupancy. That's that red box there. Things should work when it's substantially complete. You don't expect your new Tesla to take 6 to 12 months of road testing before it operates. No. When you get the keys, it operates. And so, huge opportunity here, understanding the quality requirements and when the building's really done, which then significantly helps the warranty phase and reduces the callbacks and the trouble that the building owner experiences. Moving on to the cost of commissioning, well, it really depends on the size of the building. If we look down here into the industry cost range, you're looking at 0.5% to 1% of the total construction cost. As the buildings get larger, then we move closer to that 0.5%, because we get an economy of scale. And in the VA commissioning manual on page 15, they document that $4 are saved on the project for every dollar that is spent on commissioning. And then they also say, hey, this doesn't even include the benefit of avoiding downtime in your building. So the VA is certainly at a corporate level is recognizing the huge savings that we can bring to the team.
And I can't reiterate that more, because when you think about the time spent on delays of the project, and then also on making sure that things work. We've all been in buildings. We may be in a building right now where there's one room that's warm, one room that's not, and you can't freaking figure it out because you don't know if it's a design problem or a problem in the construction phase or just the tuning of the equipment. We've all been in there, and we know that to be the case. And to have the buildings operate appropriately, and when you start talking about one of the reasons why it's so important on the VA side, is the cost of downtime is enormous when you're talking about a medical facility. So that's when we were down in Atlanta and did this presentation, it was that was one of the key pieces to try to get to. So, all right, we're up to a place where we're going to answer some questions, hopefully, and to keep this thing on track, we have about 7 minutes to do that. So real quick, Julie says, wouldn't this be considered a personal services contract? Julie, are you available to explain that? Let me see if I can get you to get unmuted. Julie, you there? I got you unmuted. Do you have a microphone? Julie? She's not. I don't know if she has a microphone or not. I'm not sure exactly in the oh, she's got no mic. So as far as a personal services contract, I would more think it was professional services than personal services. But I'm not. It depends on what you got and what you're up against.
Typically, Dave, we're hired similar to an architect or an engineer on a professional services. We are selected via qualifications, and then we negotiate based on the scope of work.
And the idea for a separate contract, as it usually under A&E type services, right? Let's see, advisory and assistance type of contract is a commission agency is providing advice to the government. Okay, I'll buy that. Thank you, Bonnie. Are these commissioning firms on GSA schedule? Yes, some of them are. We are, and you can do a search for those, and we may be able to even provide some of those for you.
We've got part of this. One of the closing slides shows the schedules that we're on, and where you'll find everyone else who's qualified as well.
Yep, we'll certainly do that. Let's see. What part of the UFGS specifications cover commissioning and what parts are changeable? Peter, hang on a second, man. Let's see what you got there. Peter, you there? I got you unmuted.
Yes, I'm Peter. I'm a construction manager.
Hey, Peter, how are you? We got some feedback going on there. I'm gonna mute you and see if we can figure that out. We're going to take that one offline, Peter. We'll see if there's anything in particular that we should concentrate for you, of what parts are specifications for covering commissioning. We'll find that out for you. Then by definition, these are not personal contracts which are prohibited. Good. Okay, there you go, Richard. Thank you very much. For the clarification, Richard says they're not personal services. They're professional services. Let's see. Will the presentation be made available? Yes, we will have a presentation. We're actually recording this as well. If you have downtime and you want to look at it over the weekend, since there's no more football, you can certainly do that, as well as have access to these. And we will be including the questions and answers as well as they come in for these and as we come up with the solutions. Any other questions before we move on? We want to keep on track with our time. We got about another minute. And if not, we'll have a place where we can do it by email as well. Very good. So avoiding the gotchas as we're getting into this. When you think about the things that get you in trouble, in almost every instance, it deals with something that has to be corrected that's already in place. So engaging your commissioning agents early really gets you in a position for the expertise across those. And one of the other questions was, isn't this part of what a general contractor should do? Yes, it is. The challenge is your general contractor is responsible for building the building and getting it done on time according to the design. He's not necessarily in charge. He's not necessarily even interested as far as the concept from design. Is the design sound? And that's why having these complex systems and somebody that can oversee all the complex systems from earlier on as opposed to later.
Well,
go ahead.
And then Dave, let me add to that a little bit. Your contractor has to make a buck. And so schedule and budget are really the contractor's primary focus. The contractor does want to do a good job, but if he doesn't make a buck, it doesn't matter to him how good a job he did. And the sole focus of the commissioning agent is on determining and measuring and communicating, are we doing a good job? And the earlier that we communicate this, the easier it is for everybody to do a good job, because they know what a good job is. And if we help them avoid the rework, it'll save the contractor a ton of money managing his subs and redoing work.
And Clayton says the design phase is the most important phase, isn't it? And the answer is yes, but things change. You may have a piece of equipment that is no longer available, that's been spec'd in, that needs to be replaced, and that's where we also have some of those problems. And the beautiful thing about the separate contract is it completely isolates and enables and empowers your commissioning agent to work on your behalf, as opposed to being potentially conflicted with where their money's coming from. So removing the potential conflicts of interest, minimizing those delays, minimizing the paperwork, especially as it revolves around change orders, and maximizing the control, your control over the project as the person responsible, either in the construction side, if you're a construction manager, as we talked about before with Peter, he's a construction manager, and also the folks that are responsible for using the building after it's done. Some of the benefits, real high level, is, first of all, the higher quality of your finished product, for crying out loud, the fewer change orders, and making sure that the project runs faster. At the end of the day, the folks that are in the building are happier with the fewer callbacks, your energy bills are lower, and you're meeting the LEED requirements and actually not just check boxes, actually having a functional building that works towards being beneficial as a result of the LEED requirements. So the reduced operating cost is also part of that. And when it comes to the VA, and we did this down in Atlanta, So that's kind of how, when we did this presentation for the VA down in Atlanta, we were really focusing on enhancing the experience for the vets, so that when they're being treated in the facilities, they're getting the best comfort level that they can get, and the building operates and works the way it's supposed to, so that the vets can get the service that they really, quite frankly, deserve. So we really appreciate the folks from the VA being here. James mentioned this earlier. Here's the contract options as far as hours. Your 03 FAC and 871 is where you're going to find commissioning agents. And as far as the session follow-up goes, you'll get a copy of the presentation. We had a bunch of folks asking about that, and links to the manuals that we were talking about before, the federal memoranda, as well as the Q&A. We're gonna compile something with the Q&A, as well as sample requirements, because there were some of those. We're actually, if you can stick around for a couple of minutes, we didn't want to just hammer on the ones that were successful, but we are going to talk about a couple of situations that may be real life for you guys. In the meantime, for those of you who want to bail, we did make the 40-minute timeline. And so Tanya, we made it. So we made that. So if you need to reach out to us and have any specific questions about anything, feel free to either give us a call or shoot us emails, and we'll pop this back up in a few minutes. But I do want to go through a couple of things, because there's another question about how can you find the qualified folks? How do you know that you have somebody that's actually qualified, even if they have a schedule of their own? And I want to talk about that real quick before we go into some examples. So if you guys want to jump, that's fine. If you want to know about the qualification pieces, let's talk about this a little bit, James, for the folks who are asking about specific qualifications that would be good for them when they're creating their RFP.
All right. You're selecting a commissioning agent based on qualifications. You're selecting a contractor typically based on price. And so you've got to keep that in mind. The commissioning agent has to know what quality is. They have to understand the role of the designer, the role of the contractor, and how all the pieces of the process work together to provide the building. So you're really looking for someone who has a well-rounded, mature understanding of building design and construction. Has to know something about mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. Has to understand control systems and how controls operate a building. Needs a broad understanding of all the other building systems as well. You know, we lose, it's estimated 30% of the energy in our buildings goes through the walls and windows and doors. And if we're going to make more energy efficient buildings, what do we do to hack off part of that 30%? Really should have an understanding of LEED and the principles of clean, energy efficient, sustainable building practice. The Building Commissioning Association, the BCA.org, has key attributes that are similar to what we're discussing here, but they've got a good quick hit list. And then obviously the ability to communicate. An engineer or an architect who cannot communicate cannot be a commissioning agent. We're working with all sorts of different people, and we have to know how to talk their language, and we have to care that they understand so we can communicate with them. And it doesn't matter how smart we are if we can't communicate.
And we see it all the time, right? Everybody on this call has seen the difference of opinion between an architect and somebody that's doing the building, and vice versa, and they wind up, throwing down sometimes as a result. So the idea is for somebody that understands the complex systems across the board and the broad knowledge of those building systems, I guess it's bullet point number 5. Key. and the ability to communicate. And again, very difficult to incorporate into an RFP because in ink and paper isn't exactly how that works. It's like James said, the ability to understand the nuances as well as personalities involved. Very
So
highly professional folks, but they just
so
can't talk
often,
to each other.
yeah, and oftentimes, as part of responding to the RFP, we're asked for references, and and part of those reference questions ought to address, hey, can this guy communicate? Um, that's one way to help determine if somebody can communicate.
And oftentimes it's not when things are going well, but when things start to break down, is being able to pull that and be that team leader to be able to pull the pieces together and make the things work. So huge. Can't between understanding the lead components and the ability to get the information across is critical. So let's talk about a couple of the projects. There's folks that are asking about project examples. There's one that kind of fits into the wheelhouse for a lot of the VA folks. Tell us about this one and some of the things that we identified during the process that help solve some problems.
Fantastic. So we're talking about two different VA housing and care facilities, one in Northern California, Redding, and one in the South Central Valley in Fresno. Two different contractors, but in this case, same architect and same agencies that were involved. And getting involved, this happened to be a design build process. So coming in early and helping the California Department of the VA, the CDVA, and DGS establish the criteria and make sure that all of the VA requirements, those federal requirements, got translated down into functional requirements that the design builder could design around and could construct. We did so. This was the enhanced commissioning, or pretty close to the whole building commissioning that we're talking about. And some of the key challenges were having a central plant that supplies hot and chilled water, which is a complicated system, but it's very energy efficient if it's tuned correctly, as it's feeding hot and chilled water throughout a campus of residential and care facilities. And how do we operate at partial occupancy as the occupancy of these facilities is phased in over a couple of years, and controlling and tuning the loop through our building automation or our control system in order to remain energy efficient and provide the comfort to the occupants. Additionally, the network system that the fire alarm and the security RANO systems run on, and how do we make sure that everything is working correctly together over the network? Networks are typically provided not by the contractor, but again by the building owner under a separate contract. So there's additional cooks in the kitchen, if you will, additional people that need to coordinate and cooperate. Performing early inspections as equipment is installed, avoiding the, hey, I'll get you later type of thing if you don't install it right. No, we want to inspect as a commissioning agent the first piece of equipment, that first section of ductwork that you install, and we want to make sure you got the first piece right, and we're going to discuss it with you. After that, your subcontractor then knows what the standard is and can install the rest of it correctly the first time, avoiding rework, avoiding schedule delay, and potentially avoiding change orders later on. So, a couple of very successful projects using the commissioning process on design build projects.
And I got a couple more questions, and then when we're going to jump for sure, because I want to make sure everybody can get to lunch on the East Coast and actually get something done on the West Coast. So we can talk about some of the other project examples if you'd like to know some more. But there's one here. From Susan. Could commissioning be helpful in a complex system such as wastewater and or central treatment plants? And the answer is absolutely yes. It's a different type of commissioning process, but certainly the process itself absolutely can apply. Wouldn't you agree with that, James?
Correct. We're going to apply the same process through the design and construction, and we're going to make sure that it works at the end. And in that case, you typically have a SCADA control system, and we're going to test the SCADA control system. It's the same process.
Super. The one other one was provide a synopsis of the Denver situation. This came in from Richard earlier. We may have only heard snippets. It's been an absolute crazy situation out in Denver with the VA project. We'll send out a link that you can read for yourself about some of the issues from that's creating almost a double the cost of the project because of a lot of different factors there. But certainly some of the components could have been mitigated from a standpoint of having a separate.
Yeah, and if I could just address that without addressing it, a lot of the problems that they're experiencing are typical problems that if we look at the process of design and construction, we could have addressed earlier. But the question didn't get raised or it didn't get resolved early, and that's a main goal of the commissioning process. Solve problems early before they become big. There you go. Removing conflicts of interest and delays. All right, so thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we're going to post all of the information up on the 3QC website that we showed you, 3qc.com or 3qcinc.com. On that resources page, there's a federal briefing, and we'd be happy to talk with you. We'll be posting up as well a statement of work that you can use in your RFPs. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week, and we will look forward to any of the additional questions you have. Feel free to shoot them to me or James. James is the one who really knows. I handle on the federal side, help with the contracting piece. So if you need any help there, we'll be glad to help you. Thanks again for joining us, and hopefully it was informative and you guys had something that you have a good takeaway for an elevator speech. So appreciate it. Thanks much.